Hi everyone. Welcome to back. Welcome to be back in the sociology of sexuality. So we are going to talk about something about how the society think about sexuality, about sex, about sexual orientations. And everything we are going to ask is that, so what are we going to discuss about sex and sexuality? So the first article I assigned is a very famous article from Greta Christina. And this article is actually has been written in 1992. So just like what you can see here, it's from 1992. And it's originally published in the Erotic Impulse, edited by David Steinberg. So, although the article is a bit ancient, but why we are still talking about this? It's because that if you have read it, you will find that she asked a lot of interesting and also very important questions. So let's talk about a good question first. So what is a good question? That's something very important in sociology. So if you ask a good question, it means that you can make people think deeper and think in other aspects that a little bit provocative and a little bit challenge or subverts to the norms of our society or the mainstream of our society. So this is an important article that I want you to read in the very first week, in the very beginning. It's because that I want you to ask yourself and think about it and try to answer the questions that she raised. You don't have to be correct or firm about your question because we all know that some questions are very complicated or very difficult or has so many layers or has so many aspects. And well, it's always complicated. And that's why the question is so important and interesting. So I want you to read this article and then try to ask yourself how you think about it and what's your opinion and what's your comment. It's a very important ability to ask interesting and important questions. So when we look at this, when we read the article, the author asks, what counts sex? What counts that we have sex? So she raised a lot of different questions in so many different circumstances under so many different contexts. And she also asks about herself, why it counts sex to me or why it doesn't. And she also wants to organize her thoughts and organize her ideology or her logics. So when she asks herself about all of this, she actually challenged the norms and challenged so many different thinkings, just like in our mainstream society, to rethink what counts sex and what sexuality is. So it challenges so many aspects and so many norms in our society. So this is, although at the end you can see that she still has no answers. She said that, well, I still don't have an answer. But that doesn't negate her article's importance, because it's very important that she raised the question to challenge what we think as take for granted assumptions. So, for example, these questions challenge a lot of imaginations of regarding sex, including heterosexual normativity, which means that makes or treat heterosexual sex as a norm, and everyone has to follow it. If you don't follow the heterosexual norm, then you will be dismissed or devalued. And there are a lot of pressures on you to ask you to be heterosexual. This is the heterosexual normativity. So one of her questions in this article challenged about the heteronormativity. And also she challenged a lot of different normativities regarding sex in our society. So maybe you can answer these questions. So like what she challenged in this article, what norms does she challenge in this article regarding sex? And when we jump to the other one, so the other one is written in 2016. The title is I Am Gay, but I Wasn't Born This Way. And this is an important article that I would like you to read. It's because that in this article, you can see how a person narrative say about his own sexual identity. And he mentioned about the chronicle processes and the changing, the shifting. So this one is simply challenge a kind of thinking. So one is the essentialism, and the other one, so essentialism or naturalism means that someone has its own cannot be changeable identity and sexual orientation. So when you say someone is born this way, it means that because someone is born this way, so there is no opportunities to be changed. And this is a huge debate during that period of time because at one aspect, so as a strategy, then LGBT movement, they want to use this as a strategy, use this kind of essentialism or naturalism as a strategy. It's because they want to stop or saying or send the message about it's not possible to change people's sexual orientation through certain kind of lessons, just like a reverse lessons. So, and this kind of strategy has its benefits because it does convince some people to agree or to just like to give up to change people's sexuality or to give up to change people's sexual orientation. However, it has its limitation as well. So what's the limitation? This is the point, the key point that the author want to answer or want to illustrate in this article. So he points out that the sexual orientation is as fluid. So the author wants to challenge the notion that sexual orientation is entirely innate and immutable. He suggests that it can be fluid and change over time. And he also mentioned about the social and environmental influences because it's not only how you are born, how you were born, it's also related to under what circumstances or what social environment that help you to develop your identities and your sexual preferences. So yes, it's like something that combine together with not only natural but also nurture. And what's the most important thing is that identity and choice. So the point is that if someone wants to choose their identity, the environment is possible to support people to do this? Is the environment has the room for people to choose their identity freely, just like give them some freedom so that they can choose their sexual performance and sexual orientation. So this is something that even more important than the argument to argue about sexual orientation is natural or nurtural, because no matter it's natural or nurtural or both, the most important thing is that people can choose what they want. So this is basically the standpoint that the author want to argue and the author want to stress on. So when you read this article, I want you to put more effort on how the author analyze things through his personal narrative and how he contextual influences on how he see his sexual identity, and how this kind of contextual 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 contextualize thinking make them just like this author and this author, this Greta Christina, how they both use their own experiences to reflect their own sex and their own sexual identities, because it will be a very important ability that you can learn to explore from your own personal experiences and engage your personal experiences to a broader thinking, a deeper analysis. So you have to connect your own personal experience and the phenomena that you see in this society, and to connect them and analyze it to reflect what's the problem, why I want to make another argument or analysis to analyze the phenomena or to challenge the mainstream thinking. So and also I suggest you to read another article. It's a sociological research about undergraduate heterosexual undergraduate, how they think about sexual having sex. So this article is, how do heterosexual undergraduate students define having sex? A new approach to an old question. So in this article, you can briefly skim it, but it's interesting. So I encourage you to have a look about it. Just read it for your knowledge. So what does it tell us? It's basically saying that so how people think about are they having sex or not? You can see the table. So when you see the table, you will get some idea, and some you can figure out how people's thinking about having sex. You can get the pattern of how people think about it. However, it's also very important that how they answer the question. So the article emphasized that contextual influence is very important. It means that how you how you think about its sex or not is very related to the context a lot. So in this article, you will see so many different contextual factors. And these factors impact a lot about how people think it's a sex or not and why. So if you want to answer a question, especially when you are going to investigate sex deeply, then it's very difficult that you only ask about simple question because sexuality itself is very complicated. So you can also see here that people have uncertainty in definitions, just like just like the other two articles have mentioned, because it's very complicated. So there are a lot of gray areas. And so what we as a sociologist has to do is to first knowing what people are thinking and why they do why they are thinking like this, what's the reason, and how they behave, how they how they think and behave, and what's the gap between this. So you can see that it's very important to do this kind of research, and it's also very interesting as well. And according to this article, you can also have a big picture of the patterns that there is a hierarchical structure of behaviors about what people think about what related to sex most and what's the least and why they think about this. So this kind of behaviors, the people still have a hierarchical thinkings. So I want you to find out what mainstream, what aspects, what norms. There are so many norms that Greta Christina has challenged. So what are they? What does she challenge? And the other one is that what is this kind of when Brandon say I'm gay, but I wasn't born this way. So how does he critique the genetic determinism? What argument that he made, and how does he convince others about his logic and argument, and why it has impact on LGBT movements? So that's a very strong point that he is making. So in next week, we're going to discuss about, okay, if we don't want to fully accept the genetic determinism, so what? So what should we do? And how can we have other perspective about this? So next week, we are going to discuss social construction of sexuality. We will read about what is social construction and why the sexuality is social construct is a social construct, and how it has been socially constructed. Okay, so this week we are going to just have a very brief introduction and ask you to read 2 articles to challenge your thinking and your thoughts, and to have another different and raise another different questions to ask yourself, why is the case? So is there any other different answer about it, or is there any other complicated complexity of sexuality? You don't really have to have a very clear and firm answers, because it's really is a difficult question, and it's including so many different aspects and debates. But I encourage you to use your sociological imaginations to try to answer all these questions. At least you ask yourself and try to give a temporary answers, but still keep your heart and your mind open, because we are just start our journey of the study of sociology of sexuality. So please complete your assignments before the due date, and we will see each other virtually next week. Bye bye.